to order the January 26th meeting. A joint workshop between the Town Council and the Tiverton Wastewater District. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you do a roll call, please?
Councillor Edwards,
Present.
Councillor Cook,
Here.
Councillor Burke,
Here.
Councillor DiMederos,
Here.
Councillor Janik,
Here.
Councillor Vieira,
Here.
Councillor Perry,
Present.
all present.
Thanks, Joan. Number 2 on our agenda is review town comprehensive plan, wastewater management plan, and town ordinance. Leroy, welcome.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate you having this meeting. It's been long overdue, I think, but I'm really glad that we're able to get together on this. So I'd like to start out by talking about why the wastewater district, why wastewater on-site management. And I think it's best really described in the comprehensive plan. I've got a quote here from a comprehensive plan of 1997, believe it or not. It says the comprehensive plan specifically mentions establishing a wastewater management district and adopting a wastewater management ordinance to prevent groundwater and surface water contamination. In addition, on-site wastewater management helps support many related goals of the comprehensive plan, such as protecting the natural features, including water supply, surface and groundwater, wetlands, coastal features, and coastal features. Properly designed and administered ISDS will help the town to retain its rural character, maintain property values, protect the town's natural resources, and contribute to the town's financial well-being. Collectively managing ISDS townwide enables the town to work towards a comprehensive plan objectives and provide a necessary alternative to the extension of sewers. Now, that was back in 1997. And so back then there was certainly a recognition that proper wastewater management in town needed to happen. And that quote was actually in the wastewater management plan for 2003. And that's when the town basically at that time got a grant from the state to do this wastewater management plan. And the plan was done. And one of the reasons that the town agreed to the plan, a big reason, is because there was a program called the Community Septic System Loan Program. And in order to get that financing for the residents of the town had to have a wastewater management plan and ordinance. So this there was an advisory committee done previous to 2003, and they worked with the consultant to put this plan together. And so every comprehensive plan that the town's done since 1997, and maybe even before that, included some portion of the importance of on-site wastewater management in town. And so that's really the why. If the town councilors that got the materials to prep, I won't go through and read this verbatim, but I'll just, the first handout on review of the town comprehensive plan, this is the one dated 2018. I would assume that's the latest. Yeah.
Yes.
So in that document, we just highlighted, we just went into the document and did a search on septic. And there's 25 mentions of septic systems and that through the plan. A couple of them I'll say right here in the 2018 plan, page 10, it says, since the lifeblood of a community, the drinking water supply comes from resources within the town, the protection of those resources is of crucial importance. Stafford Pond, Tiverton's only public water resource for the town, faces continuing contamination threat from failed septic systems, road runoff, and recreational use. So it really talks about the commitment and the need for this. In that same document of constraints, I'll just quote another one. An analysis of the soils completed using United States Natural Resources Conservation Service soil survey of Rhode Island showed that large areas of the town are unsuitable for many types of development, and particularly for septic systems. And so, that's part of the why. Another part of the comprehensive plan, I'll quote, it says, currently it's estimated that 94% of the homes and businesses in Tiverton rely on on-site sewage disposal systems, which an estimated 6,400 separate septic systems, half built before 1970, which means that they're probably cesspools, which don't treat sewage, which implies outdated design concepts. Modern OWTS works very well, even in poor soil conditions, provided they are monitored to ensure that groundwater does not become contaminated. According to soil analysis, 80% of Tiverton's land area is problematic for septic systems. The soils are dense, slow permeability, and have an underlying restrictive layer of hardpan and seasonal high water tables. So it's really important that these systems be properly designed and properly maintained, or you threaten the water supplies. On page 88 of the comprehensive plan, it says an on-site wastewater management program was adopted July of 2006 by the town council to ensure that our precious water resources do not become contaminated from failing systems. And the last couple things that I'll say on the comprehensive plan had to do with action items. On page 95, it says, continue to work with the Tiverton Wastewater District to implement a phased expansion of sewers in the north end of town, especially the Bay Street area, the Riverside Drive area, and the Robert Gray area, and the areas north of Judson Street, as to address the environmental challenges resulting from the failed cesspools and outdated septic systems. Proposed public sewer areas. The town should encourage dialogue and exercise oversight to ensure that the town's sewer expansion is done in a manner consistent with the town goals, policies, programs, and those listed in the comprehensive plan. And just to expand on that for a second, we have not been able to do, even though 90% of the septic systems in the Bay Street area have failed, we've not been able to do anything or very much in the way of putting in sewers or designing sewers in that area, which would be the solution, because of the contamination underneath the town's streets. And so that's something that we'll have to certainly get addressed, because we got two problems there, the contamination and of the soils due to septic, and the runoff that runs off into the bay because of the failed septic systems in that area. And then the last action plan on page 96, it says to update the town's on-site wastewater treatment system regulations to address the latest methods of technologies and to be consistent with the state regulators. The town's on-site wastewater treatment systems, septic ordinance and regulations have not been thoroughly updated in several, it says decades, but that's really since written in 2006. During this time, disposal systems, methods, technologies have improved significantly, and the state has passed new regulations. Consideration should be made to ensure that regulatory burden on property owners does not exceed what is necessary to protect public health, water quality, and environment. So that's just a part of what's actually in the comprehensive plan that started back in at least 1997 and continues today. So that
Leroy,
is why. Yes.
just to interrupt you for a second. So I think one of our major concerns, and it was, I think the last time we spoke, is that ordinance needs to be updated, correct?
That's right. That was one of the action items that's in there.
Okay.
Updating the ordinance and the regulations.
Because it's way too old and it's very hard to enforce. There's really no enforcement that you guys can do right now. It's very old. So we need to work on that. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that when we get to the action items.
Perfect.
But certainly that's kind of the why we're here. I think that it's important that the town council and the town residents understand the importance of this, and that this is a town document. I mean, I've heard people say before that, hey, this isn't the town's responsibility, it's the state's responsibility. Well, the state didn't write that ordinance, the state didn't write that wastewater management plan, the town did. And the town did for its own reasons, to protect its own water and et cetera. So it is a town responsibility. And so that's the wastewater, that's the comprehensive plan. Now, just quickly talk a little bit about the wastewater management plan that was written in 2003. Basically, there were 4 things in that wastewater management plan, and it was a toolbox. It was a document that says, this is the direction that you need to go in order to take care of the issues in Tiverton. So 4 parts. First was public outreach and education and technical assistance. So what that means is, having programs, workshops, et cetera, to inform the public about wastewater treatment systems and get them to understand what's required for maintenance. I had a neighbor across the street from me this past summer. I saw a septic truck out in front of his house. He says, "Oh, great. Finally got around to getting this thing pumped." I said, "Well, when's the last time you had it pumped?" He says, 22 years ago. So there's a lot of people out there that just don't understand it. So part of the mission in the wastewater management plan is public outreach and education. The technical assistance part is someone or some entity to explain to people when they get into trouble how to fix it. So someone calls up and they've got a failed system, what do we do? So the purpose of this wastewater management plan is to, at that time, was to have a superintendent to perform these things, to perform these duties on outreach and education and assistance. The second part of the wastewater management plan was a septic system inspection and maintenance. That was supposed to start in 2006 and go into and be finished up by 2014 to inspect all 6,000 septic systems in town. And I think that a superintendent was hired in 2007, but it wasn't realistic or reasonable to believe that one person that also was responsible for taking care of sewers in town could actually do this work, to oversee and write the letters and do the enforcement and all of that stuff. It just wasn't realistic. So here we are, about since 2006, we're 14 years in, and probably less than 20% of the systems in town have been inspected. So
for that initial baseline inspection. Yeah,
the initial baseline. So the town hasn't followed its plan and really hasn't done what it's even said it wanted to do in the comprehensive plan. So that's the inspection program. The other one is zoning and subdivision provisions related to septic systems, setbacks, and performance standards. So this plan outlined, you know, if a developer comes in town, what types of standards and all that do they need to abide by? Because of the problematic soils in town, et cetera. We are now in a situation where if there's big developments that come to town, we're mostly going to say you got to be attached to the sewer system. I mean, the towns aren't really well suited for big development of any type unless it's tied to sewer. And then the last part of the wastewater management plan had to do with the C-SLIP program. That's the financing program that allows the low interest loans for repair and maintenance of and replacement of septic systems. So that's the wastewater management plan. Just a couple other things in it. It outlined the town goals. It said to safeguard public health, protect water resources, ensure that the town has resources to implement the on-site wastewater management plan and ordinance. Software program for tracking and GIS incorporation with the assessor data. So to keep track of every septic system in town, keep track of when it was pumped, when it was inspected, when it was installed, when it was maintained. It said in there not to exceed 6 years to implement the ordinance, encourage upgrade of cesspools to current standards, prevent system failure and increasing system longevity, provide the financial assistance of the C-SLIP program, and to protect coastal waters and shellfishing. It had some water protection goals of ensuring the water quality of public water supplies, requirements for watershed and wellhead protection areas, and incorporation of water source assessment program. And then educational goals. Annual education strategy, educate residents on their responsibility for adequate treatment of their own wastewater, provide information by display on the website, workshops, etc. Provide education with a focus on the program compliance, education on water conservation, and inform homeowners of appropriate design options. So that's the wastewater management plan. I'll pause here for any questions or comments at this time.
Donna?
Yes.
I believe when we speak about Stafford Pond, we don't own it. Isn't it Fall Rivers Pond, even though it's in Tiverton?
No, I believe it's our pond, but Fall River uses it for their drinking water. We own it. We own it. We regulate it. We regulate the fishing there and everything that goes on there. But Fall River does utilize it for their drinking water. We do too, I believe.
Well, Fall River doesn't. They can. I think it's an emergency source because they pull from the Watuppa ponds.
I think they have in the past though.
Yeah,
No?
in the past, it is a source that they can tap from if they needed to, but it is the primary source for Stonebridge.
Yes.
They have a water treatment plant on the pond, and
Yes.
Stonebridge sells water to North Tiverton Fire District. So all Tiverton residents get a piece of Stafford Pond water from Stonebridge and North Tiverton.
Yes. Carrie?
I just wanted to reiterate that the main purpose of the wastewater management plan was to coincide with the C-SLIP program.
Yes.
It was just a requirement of the C-SLIP program. And when we're looking at updating this plan or the ordinance attached to it, just to remember that it is what qualifies the town for the C-SLIP funding. So if we make updates to the ordinance or to the plan, then we need to make sure that they're done within, those kind of parameters to make sure that we continue to be able to, that's a great resource for our residents. It started out, and in the original, in the documents you have, the original wastewater management plan, it was a $20,000 maximum. It has since gone up to $25,000. So residents have access for up to $25,000 in low interest loans to make upgrades, repairs, and replacements of their septic system. And it's an amazing program.
Council Edwards?
Sorry. Just one comment on ownership. It's a drinking water reservoir, and what matters is where is it situated, and wherever that is, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. The town or the area where it's located is responsible to not pollute it. So that is to say, let's say Fall River owned it. Okay, but it's in Tiverton, we can't pollute it, and we have to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, the same thing goes with Nonquit Pond
Yes.
too. Newport uses that. Am I
Right.
correct in that, Leroy?
It is, again, it's a emergency source for Newport. They don't use it regularly, but we have an obligation to not pollute it.
Correct. Anyone else?
Just a little, I know that we have these loans. I did not realize the town's required to pay if the homeowner defaults.
That's correct.
Does that happen frequently?
It's
It's
never
not-
happened.
It's
Never
never happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The CSIP loan program, it is something that if there's some sort of debt to income exception, there have been in times past, the town administrator has approved exceptions. But generally, if the debt to income ratio is excessive, and the limit on it is already, I think, 45%. So it's already pretty extreme. And I remember in particular, there was one that was approved as an exception because the person was at 45.5 or 46%. So yeah, they granted the exception. But in situations where it's been, egregiously over that limit, they've just been denied, and we refer them to usually church community housing as an alternative because they have a really good low interest program, especially for people who have income restrictions. But as far as the CSLIP program, it's never had a default in Tiverton. And I think that's a testament to the residents. They do take ownership.
Leroy, there was also a concern the last time we had a discussion, and I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but there was some residents that were concerned that their septics were being inspected, and they were required to do it a couple of times, where there was different areas in town that did not have to have those septic inspected. Could somebody speak on that?
Yeah,
So
let me
public can hear
let me
that.
talk to that. Basically, you're talking around the Stafford Pond area. And
And there was another area too, but I don't remember.
well, I know that so there had been some complaints from the Stafford Pond area, and really that is because of the criticality of that area. When we sent out letters and we were encouraging people to get their systems inspected so that we could find out where the cesspools were, and especially the 2007 Cesspool Act that basically said that you can't have a cesspool within 200 feet of a water body. So we really were trying to get those people, since it's a critical drinking water source, into compliance. They're still not 100%.
Also, the
How
ordinance actually mandates that. The ordinance in the town actually mandates that we place priority for our inspection notifications on any properties that are within proximity to any water body source. Separate from that, there may be one homeowner, let's say there's two homeowners living right next door to each other. One homeowner gets a notification because they both had their baseline inspections. and one homeowner's inspector says, okay, you have to get your system inspected every 3 years, and it needs to be pumped every 5. And this other homeowner, homeowner B, they live right next door, but their inspector says you need to get your system inspected every 4 years, and you only need to pump yours every 6 years. And so there's a variance. It will vary from property to property. And if there's a multifamily property, or if there's a lot of usage, then it's based on what's logged in our software system for management. So if it is logged, we are tracking it. And if we don't get a response, which usually is what ends up happening, if we don't get a response, the ordinance actually requires that we continue to notify those people.
So how about the non-quit pond area? Are they also getting letters to be inspected?
They are. Our district has actually separated out all of the different inspection regions. And you'll see, I'm not sure if everyone received everything, but the very last bit of information that we put together in the packet is a history of everything that we had done so far as a district with regard to on-site services. And 2019, when we gave our report to the town, we actually separated our reports by our inspection districts to show that actually in Stafford Pond, there's 92% compliance. It's doing really well there. But that's of a certain number of, I think it was like 400 or something homes. And then in the non-quit pond area, that one has significantly fewer homes, but it only has 44% non-compliance. So there's 60%, there's almost 60% of actual compliance in non-quit pond versus 92% compliance in Stafford Pond.
So my next question, and this isn't a popular question, but are businesses also being required to be inspected?
Yes, every property, whether it's commercial or whether it's residential. Yes.
Yeah, the thing is, though, at this point, at least for the last couple of years, we've been very, very limited on what we can do for inspections, just simply because we just don't have the finances to do it.
Yeah.
So as far as sending out the letters, is that where you've been limited?
Well, we've done that.
Every part of it has been limited because we haven't sent out the letters. It's not just sending out the letters, it's the follow-up and all of that. And with a $20,000 budget or $30,000 budget, it's not enough to do run the whole inspection program, run the C-slip program, take care of all the day-to-day problems that residents have all over the town, deal with the real estate people and questions about septic systems and all that. The inspections just fall off by the wayside. Just can't
especially
get it
when there's no enforcement. If there's no way to enforce that they actually get the inspection done, then it really is.
They just blow it off.
Yeah, even if we can send them out all we want, and up until early 2020, that's exactly what we did. It was in late 2020 when we decided to shift gears, especially because of COVID, and just we took a different approach with a public education campaign.
Yeah, we didn't.
Well, I also think, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I also think it's very important we rewrite the ordinance so that you have a better direction and a better way to go, and then make a plan and decide the funding. Well,
that's exactly what we're
now. But if the ordinance is written, then we'll have a better idea of what track we're going down.
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
That's exactly why we're here.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What we have to talk about is who writes the ordinance, though.
Well, we'll talk about that. That's part of the action plan.
I do have questions from the audience, and I would imagine if these questions are on the subject we're discussing right now, As long as the council doesn't have any more questions. Chris, I see 2 questions. So could we go over there and see what we got? I think Joe has it.
Joe has a statement, and
Oh, he
then,
does?
yeah, that the water that falls over the dam is Fall Rivers.
I think that's not, he's talking about non-quit, isn't he? No? Is Joe? Well, Sherry Ackley had an answer, question. Do we have any more families than last year ready to hook up to public sewer? About 6, if I remember correctly, from last year.
Can you repeat that question?
Do we have any more families than last year ready to hook up to public sewer? About 6, she remembers correctly, was last year.
Yeah, we've had several, well, aside from the major project that we're doing now, we had at least 25 families hook up to sewer last year and last fiscal year, and we're having more and more people. There were 50 abutters that abutted the sewer and weren't hooked up. And our rules and regulations, the Tiverton Wastewater District rules and regulations state that if is a carry on from the town's rule, that if you abut a sewer, you have 1 year to hook up. And so we didn't do a very good job. The town didn't do a good job at enforcing that. And we didn't do a good job initially enforcing that either, because just, we're just getting started. We were working on our major project, et cetera. Now we're enforcing it. And now, because we have enforcement, all but 16 people have either hooked up or in the process of hooking up. So it pretty much proves that you have to have, you have to have some enforcement or people will just blow you off. And it's the same thing for the on-site wastewater inspections. We gotta have something in place that compels people to do the right thing sometimes. They just need a little bit of urging.
Now, Joe Souza still has his hand up. Joe, can you? Chris, is there a way we can hear him?
He's coming in.
Okay. I tried to get him in. I'm not sure I did.
He's there.
Okay.
I don't know if he knows he's there.
Joe, do you have a question that you haven't typed in?
Hear me now?
Turn up your mic, Joe. Turn up your mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
A little bit better.
A little louder.
I'll come closer.
Okay.
I've looked at part of the legislation that was passed at the state level, and I'm wondering if anybody on the council has looked at that, because the requirements have changed by DEM. And I understand he's talking about our own ordinance, and we have redone our comprehensive plan. So I'm not sure all of that is still in the new comprehensive plan. I don't need to remind the council of the capital needs and the dollar amount on that. So it just seems to me that we should allow DEM to handle this. If there's problems with septic systems, let's let DEM handle it and not use the taxpayer money. I mean, we got millions in capital needs, so we can't do it all. And that's my only point. And I'm not going to really push for funding for the plan. I mean, it just seems to me if there's problems with the septic system, let the building inspector call DEM. End of story. Thank you.
Joe, that does happen if there is a problem. We're talking inspections now. And correct me if I'm wrong, Leroy, but DEM only comes into the situation if there is a problem. Am I right?
Yeah, if there's a need for a new system where they need to get permits for a new system, that's where DEM is involved. Or if there's a failed system and someone calls DEM on a neighbor or something like that. But this is the town's own ordinance and own rules and regulations that DEM is expecting the town to take care of their own.
DEM did get involved actually, and they got involved when the town actually created the wastewater management plan. So that was DEM's involvement, and DEM approved that plan. So
I
that's
remember all that.
where DEM
I was there
is
for the
responsible.
But DEM only, in my past history in the last 8-10 years, is they get involved if a complaint goes to them. They don't,
Right.
they're not responsible for coming into town and
Right.
inspecting. And part of, if I remember correctly, forming this wastewater was so that we could get these grants to help these homeowners that needed new septics or anything that we needed grants for that the town needed to upgrade. So,
Correct.
and that's why we formed the wastewater district, so that we could get these grants. Am I right?
That is correct.
Yep.
So it's totally different. What DEM's function is and what our function is totally different.
I think the other thing to remember too
Maybe
is
they could
that
get grants to do all the work then. Maybe that's what they need to do. Get grants to do the work and
Well,
stop
they-
asking the taxpayers for $30,000 a year. Okay, I'll shut up. I said.
No, Joe. And just to let you know, they have gotten a lot of grants and they've helped homeowners get these low interest rates and all of that to replace their septic. So they have gotten grants. And
So just last year, we helped 19 people do applications for the C-SLIP program at $25,000 a pop. That's a lot of money.
and you've also gotten grants to put in
Sewer.
sewer. Okay, sorry, sewer. And you did that last year.
And we actually started construction on that this year, and we have 25 people hooked up by the end of our year in December. And they will be resuming construction in March to get the rest of the approximately, it's almost 200 people.
And without the funding that we give them, even if it's as low as 20 to 30, they are helping these citizens to upgrade their system, hook up to the septic. So this is the town. This isn't DEM. This is the town helping citizens. Chris?
So I just want to clarify something, that the on-site wastewater issue, that where we do have contamination issues, is not a DEM issue. It's a town issue. The town owns the responsibility to ensure that we're not contaminating any of the public water systems, and that includes groundwater. So DEM regulates when you go to get a septic system to be installed, but they give you a minimal standards. And look at the entire North End now, most of that is done, even if they were done with leach fields, have failed because they were minimal standard approvals. So, DEM's not going to come in and rectify this. It's on the town to fix this. And it's on the town to ensure that we are not polluting other groundwater areas, like around the Stafford Pond area, the Nonco Pond area, or any other sensitive water area. So this is not a DEM issue. It's a town issue.
All right, so okay, Jay, and then I'm going to move on to item.
Well, I'm just going to say that, really all these regulations and rules and ordinances, they percolate down. They start at the federal level, the state adopts them, then they pass on the responsibility to meet those standards and regulations to us, the town. Now, what we did in turn then, we had legislation developing the wastewater district. We had an ordinance acknowledging our responsibility to deal with it. We have a comprehensive plan, again, acknowledging our responsibility. And we also had a wastewater management plan, again, acknowledging and accepting our responsibility. So we have at least 4 documents that if you were, let's just say that you had to present a case in a court of law, that acknowledges and says, yes, we understand we're responsible and we accept that responsibility. And that's where we are right now.
Okay,
Denise, I have one quick question, Denise.
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
Laura, just so I'm clear in my understanding, when you used the term a little bit ago about abutting the sewage system, that would be if I have a sewage line coming down the street, I'd be considered an abutter?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly go through the ordinance and we'll move on. But basically, the ordinance was drafted from the wastewater management plan, and it really gets into the nuts and bolts about the requirements for the purpose and requirements and enforcement, and really covers all those things. I won't go into a lot of detail. And also financing, how the C-SLIP program should be supported. The ordinance talks about the inspection program. It's basically saying that, everything should be inspected by 2014, and we need to have a database and all this stuff. So the ordinance really lines it all out. And when it was done in 2006, it was fine. We just never followed it. The town never, they took the financing and they hired a part-time person to do it, a superintendent, but realistically, it just couldn't be done by one person. And then when the wastewater district started in 2014, our main mission is sewers in town, the Tiverton Wastewater District. And basically, it makes sense that the town subcontract its wastewater responsibilities to us. I mean, we have the staff and the knowledge and all of that to do it. But it's been 6 years now that the district's been in business, and we're just not making any progress on this at all. So that's really the purpose of this, is to say, okay, how can we get this done? And how can we finance it in the future, et cetera? And so that we'll talk about that when we get to that stage in the program. So that's, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie to talk a little bit briefly. Let's not go into a lot of detail, but briefly, what the district has done for on-site wastewater for the last 6 years.
Thanks, Leroy. So as Leroy had started, with the way that that the town initially set things up, they had one employee, and they took $20,000 from the general fund, and they put that towards that employee. But they said the rest of that employee's salary should come from the sewer users, and that person will be responsible for both sewer and wastewater. So even before the district was formed, the idea in practice of personnel for this enforcing this ordinance, that's what Leroy is saying. It was never properly funded. But when the district started in 2014, at that time, the town essentially invoiced the district in bulk. They did that for, I believe, the first 2 years. And then after that, or three years. And then after that, we started doing a monthly invoicing with itemization. And what we do with that town money is we do assist with C-SLIP applications, but I want to be really clear about what that means. The administration part of the C-SLIP program is all handled by Rhode Island Housing, and they provide reporting details on how much the fund is and when it needs to be refunded and replenished. They provide details on how many loans have closed, how many applications are in progress, and when they get denied, if they get denied. They also provide administration on collections of those loans. So Rhode Island Housing does a lot, but Tiverton Wastewater District has a pre-application, and we just make sure that the homeowner has all of their documents in a row. We check with the town tax assessor to make sure that they are not, they don't have any past due tax debt. And then we make sure that they are the homeowner, things that are the requirements of the C-SLIP program. What that does is it helps make it a better process and transition, and that's what enables that program to be a little bit smoother. We also assist with real estate transactions. We actually get updates on if it hits the MLS listing, we get updates on it. And that is how we're able to do most of our enforcement, is through real estate transactions. And then we also provide support to residents, that technical assistance. If they're making a repair to their septic system and they call us and speak to one of our engineers a lot of times will go out to their home, help them mark things out. And if we can't actually provide the design assistance, we actually put them in touch with engineers who can help them do their design. And we've done that every single year. In 2016, we began doing our, notices out to the residents, and we started additional support with fielding calls about the town ordinance. We're averaging between 20 and 35 calls a month, and in the spring and summer months that usually goes up, and that has been fairly consistent as well. And then we have, with the C-SLIP loan program in that 2016 year, we had 14 applications and closed on $122,000 in loans. I mean, that's just in early on, and it's only gotten more since then. We do have an inspection program, and part of the ordinance required that we establish software that helps us track all of those things. It's called Carmody. We actually do that. It's available to the public. The public can go in and view at septicsearch.com. Now, however, if they've never done their baseline inspection, and if their inspector never uploaded that information, we don't have the information. So there needs to be, when we're looking at updating this ordinance, it needs to be, one part is a requirement to have your inspection logged. So there needs to be enforcement on actually having the inspection, but there also needs to be some sort of enforcement on local inspectors. Like if you're licensed to do this in the town of Tiverton, then you sign on with an agreement that you will be logging this information, because that's the other part of it, is it's not consistently done. And just reviewing all of that is a full-time job alone. And we have not been able to put full-time hours towards that ever, even before the district existed. The Wastewater Management Commission didn't have the personnel hours for that. They only paid $20,000 for a part-time salary. So similarly, we have in our third year, we have increased monthly calls. At the time of the report, there were fewer C-SLIP applications, but that was just because the report was done. It's usually done in the winter, and then that comes up in the spring and summer.
Carrie, if I could just interject here.
Yep.
One thing that we did do for the town is we calculated how much C-SLIP monies that the town has needed, and we assisted the town in going to the infrastructure bank and
with refunding that program.
Refunding the program. Last time, it was a couple of years ago, it was $900,000, and we've also supported the town administrator, I think this year or last year, to
600,000, yeah,
replenish those funds. So we stay on top of that. When we start getting low, we come to the town and say, hey, we need to replenish this because people are using it and they need it.
Yeah, and in 2017, for our fiscal year 2017-2018, we actually had 19 applications completed by our annual report in 2018. We continue to do our subscription to Carmody software. At that point, we had started doing press releases for our inspection notification, so that people were aware by public notice that we were doing this. And then we also sent out our notices, that certified letter. And we found again that the easiest way to force enforcement is through real estate transactions. But by 2018, there was an additional concern with the property at Dadson Estates. It has over 100 residences. So even though Dadson Estates represents one parcel and one property, it has over 100 residences there, and it is more than 50% failed on septage. So
it's actually polluting the wetlands.
Every home, if you drive around Dadson Estates, every other home has a failed septic, and just approximately, it's more than 50%. And they have had a real challenge with trying to find a community septic design. They were trying to work with rural development and USDA, and they've just never come to a financial solution that worked to qualify them for the loan. And we were helping with that as well. We were meeting with Atlantic State's water resources and rural development to help with that. And then by 2019, that's when we decided, I had actually come on at that point, and that's when we decided to separate our reports by sub-district so that you could actually see a better accounting of the compliance efforts. And that's where you see that there's actually quite a lot of compliance, strong compliance at Stafford Pond, but Non-Quit and Nanaquacket ponds, they just don't have the same level of compliance. And what we see is residents will maybe follow up initially and pull a permit, but then they just let their permit expire and they never do anything. They never actually get the work completed. And then for our last year, 2019 to 2020, we did not invoice the town as much. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we were scaled back. It was, we were focused more on our sewer expansion. Our sewer project went to bid in January. It opened in and construction started in June. So between January and June, our main priority was actually on installing this sewer. It's one of the biggest projects, Save the Library, Tiverton has seen in quite some time. So that was where most of our efforts did go. And then once COVID-19 hit, we had to change our idea of our education program. However, before COVID, before we realized how the massive scale of COVID, we did have a financial workshop in February that was geared just towards people to help them with resources for the CSLIP program. And I had loan officers from church community housing available on site for residents for financial counseling to help them with making repairs if needed. So we did do that. And then towards the end of the year, we helped with refunding the CSLIP loan fund. And then this year, we actually had to switch gears again because of COVID, and we did something completely different. I'm sure you saw the Septic Sam advertising campaign. We had a very large advertisement. We were able to give away 4 completely free inspections and pump outs. We'll be awarding those in the spring so that, in that season where people are able to get that work done, they'll be able to get that at no cost. And this is very expensive work. It can be for some of these homeowners, it might be the only way they'll ever be compliant with the inspection program, is because we created this incentive contest. If they take their photo with Septic Sam and submit it on Facebook or send it to our email, then they'll get entered to win. And so that coincided with an educational mailer that we actually sent out 6,500 mailers for the entire town of Tiverton.
Carrie, we're gonna have to wrap that up. But
so we've done a lot with very little, but actually had a fully funded program that was enforceable. We could do so much more.
Yeah. So let's go ahead, Denise.
I only have one question. So when we do have septic systems that are contaminating wetlands, wouldn't that be, as we talked about before, a reason to call DEM in?
We do. We copy
Right.
DEM on those notifications.
All right, because
They do log
that's
them.
what I was talking about. Okay.
Yep, they log every single one of those. But they're not necessarily going to intervene.
They should.
Until there's, they should, but they are also staffed. They are also understaffed, and I'm not sure that's going to change anytime soon. but they do follow up when it affects the shellfishing testing. So they do continue to do that kind of environmental testing.
One thing that
for our ponds.
we do need to resolve that issue. And, you know, whether it's with a different type of on-site system or something, but again, we don't have the resources to step in and help that business owner with his problem, but his problem is the town's problem. And so we need to get involved, and, you know, whether it's helping them with a larger on-site system, individual systems, or running 2 miles of pipe out there and putting them all on the sewer, we've got to come up with a solution for that. I'd like to move on to the action items and what we think needs to happen.
Sure.
The first thing is we would like to do in this upcoming budget year is we would like to put together a 5-year plan for on-site wastewater for the town. So basically, in order to do that, we need to revise the on-site wastewater management plan for 2003, update it. We need to update the ordinance, and we need to have the resources to do that, which means that basically we need a full-time person to take care of on-site wastewater issues for the town. And that would allow us to do the program, the inspection program, and the education program, and do everything that needs to be done on an annual basis by the town. So that's really what should happen at this point. And so we should plan to do that this upcoming fiscal year. All right, so the big issue is, how do we pay for it? And so if you go to the section of the ordinance, section 18-9.11, it says the town council shall have the authority to raise funds for the administration, operation, and contractual obligations and services of the on-site wastewater program. And the second bullet says the wastewater superintendent and town administrator may propose a fee schedule for the approval of the town council as a resolution to be assessed each owner of an on-site wastewater treatment system. Said fee shall be based on a total number of on-site wastewater treatment systems in town and administrative and technical costs associated with providing these services herein. Any funds collected or raised for the purposes of implementing the on-site wastewater management program shall be kept in a dedicated separate account from the town's general fund. So there's 2 reasons to do this. You know, the first one is, you know, it needs to be fully funded. And so a fee outside the general fund, would just be basically this ordinance that you already have saying you can charge a fee outside and it shouldn't be part of the general fund. It should be in its own account. But the other reason to do this is that after, at the end of this year, there's going to be 900 plus people on sewer. And those people are being charged by the wastewater district to take care of their wastewater management system. They should not be paying tax dollars or paying into the general fund for that service because they're not getting that service from the town. So it would be equitable for the town to charge a fee for the people who have septic systems to take care of the on-site wastewater program. And for the people that are on sewer, they would not pay that fee because they're paying administrative, management, and maintenance fees for their sewer connections as part of their bill. So that would, you know, that would make it fair and equitable to everybody in town to have it separated. And then that way also, you know, it just makes it a lot easier, and it's not based on what's going on with the town budget at that point. It's just a fee. And so we've been kicking around a fee, and we think that $20 per household per year should be a good start. That would generate enough revenue for this upcoming fiscal year to do all of the planning and revisions. And also, I forgot to mention, in the action plan, we need to set up the municipal court so that enforcement can be by the court. So basically, if someone didn't pay their bill or whatever, they would get a summons from the court, and that would be the enforcement part of this. So part of the wastewater, the strategic plan for on-site wastewater management would be doing whatever enabling legislation that needs to be done to authorize the court to be able to do the enforcement piece of this. So that way we would take care of all parts of this, the funding, the enforcement. We would be able to properly do the inspections. We would set up a new realistic schedule on when we could get all 6,000 on-site systems inspected, et cetera. So that's pretty much our recommendation going forward. Chris, you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I think the only other thing that you missed is we would probably need some sort of memorandum of understanding between the Tiverton Wastewater District and the town of Tiverton about how it gets implemented, how everything between the ordinances that are the town requirements and the oversight and enforcement by the wastewater district to ensure that these things are being conformed with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing too. I lost it.
I just want to say that this is not going to get done within the next month. Let's admit that, first of all.
Probably not.
And this is very complicated. I think we need to set priorities. The first thing we're going to do, which I think you all agree is an ordinance. The second thing, as far as the money not going into the general fund, that has to be a restricted fund just for you. So we have to set that up and make sure we can. I have a problem doing that sometimes, because when you say we made this money, so it's going to go in our restricted fund, there's a lot of departments that make money and they want that money to be in their fund. So we have to be very careful how we do that, because the fire department, for example, brings in a lot of revenue for billing. We cannot give that money to the fire department. So I think we have to be a little careful because you're a separate entity, and we probably could do this and give that as the reason.
Well, and I think that and the fact that you have separate ratepayers who would be, you have people who are on sewers who are not going to at all be paying. You've got people who, have septic systems that would be paying. So they're two separate, distinct populations.
Can't hear you, Denise.
I'm sorry, my dog's barking again. Jay, go ahead.
All right, so let me be sure I heard what you just said. The wastewater district, the only money they're going to earn, if you want to put it that way, is what's generated from a fee, which we would collect, put in a restricted account, and it would be theirs to use. So there's no, it's not the same as the fire department not getting, say, rescue money to use as they, see fit.
There would have to be an MOU.
I'm sorry?
There would have to be an MOU outlining how those.
Yeah.
Jay,
Exactly.
the reason why I said that is I wanted to make that clear. I want that to come out now, that's the reason why we would do this for the wastewater. Because this would be.
And they would be the wastewater district, and then the on-site wastewater, whatever you want to call it, are two separate entities that talk to each other, and they're funded differently. One is funded by fees collected from people connected to the sewer, And the other one is funded either by, we give the money out of the general fund, or we initiate a fee, which is, turned over to them, and they, however, we give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, again, we bill you monthly or whatever, and then you would pay it out of the fund. It's not our money, it's your money.
Right.
It's just your bucket of money to pay us when we bill you.
It's restricted and it can only be used for that.
Correct. I think Donna had a comment or a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
I was wondering when someone goes from, people already on sewage are going to be paying, I guess, to you or Fall River, I'm not quite sure.
They pay to us.
Okay. So as soon as they hook up, who takes care of the fact that they're not being double billed because they were on the on-site before and all of a sudden now there's sewage? Is that taken care of by your department?
Well, we'll need to do that. We're not doing that right now. Right now, those people that are on sewer are double paying. They're paying our fees for administration and maintenance of our sewer system, but they're also paying for on-site through their taxes. And that's what we're trying to get away from.
Well, that's not right.
Right. That's what we
Just
think.
not right. That's
Right.
So
That's why we say it should be a separate, if it's a separate fee, then you can make it fair for everybody. But if it comes in through the tax, through real estate tax, then it's not fair. So it should be taken out of the real estate tax and just made a fee, and then you can, when the town sends the bills out, there would be a separate item there that says, $20,000 or $20 wastewater fee for those people who have on-site systems, and they wouldn't be on the bill for the people with sewer.
So as people get on the sewage, so you're going to be losing people with the on-site, so the money's going to go down. So now what happens? The money requested from them is going to go up, right? Supply and demand.
No, it will, the actual demand for the program will be lessened because you'll have fewer people doing septic. When you have septic people and they switch over to sewer, they're not going to go back to being septic users. So the actual pool of septic users gets smaller. Also, once you have fees and fines actually enforced, you don't have to charge people as much because you have this pool of funds that you've accumulated from enforcement actions. So every year we would have to do a program review to show based on how many people are receiving on-site benefits and services versus what was collected from enforcement strategies, and then recalculate that fee annually, and it would be variable. It would not be set.
Plus you'd
So
have
it might go down. It could go
It would
down.
go down.
Yeah, it would go
I
down.
think the idea is that as you're lessening the pool of people who are on septic and they're converting over to sewer, and you have people who are actually enforcing it, it would go down. The idea is that you wouldn't have to, this would be hopefully be a self-managing thing, but people aren't self-managing and self-regulating already. There's no one making them do that. So
Yeah, just to let you know that Portsmouth has a full-time person doing their wastewater management. Charlestown has a full-time person, and others have full-time people that are doing just the on-site stuff because they're primarily on-site. The other thing too is that, we'll have 900 at the end of this year, but on-site systems are gonna always be the major part of wastewater management in town. Sewers don't make sense in most of the areas of Tiverton. So I don't think that you'll ever see much more than maybe 2,000 out of the 6,500 that might be on sewer. So on-site is always going to be a major part of it.
His hand up a couple of times.
What was that?
Mike Burke has had his hand up a couple
Oh,
of
I'm
times.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
You're muted, Mike.
Thanks,
There you
Jay.
go.
Just a few questions. Leroy, you had just made a statement that I am maybe naive about. You had said that the sewer, folks who are tied into the sewer are currently basically paying twice because they're paying for their sewer and they're paying for the on-site wastewater treatment somehow?
That's correct. The town pays us
Okay,
out of the general fund to take care of on-site. And every citizen pays into the general fund.
okay. So
So-
we're not paying, nobody's paying a fee. It's part of the ongoing operation of the town.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that needs to be clear, that there's no extra fee being paid
Right.
for it.
So,
It's part of the taxes.
so if
Not
you
at
say,
this time.
It-
right. So, I mean, if you look at it this way, the town
It
has
is part,
authorized,
wait. It is part of the taxes, Jay.
Yes.
yes.
It is.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I thought you said something different. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, if the town gives us $30,000 a year, every taxpayer has contributed to that 30,000, and we're saying,
Even if they're connected to the sewer.
right,
Right, but and that's the same way every taxpayer may or may not use all the other aspects related to the town.
yeah,
whether
except
it's
in
school-
in this particular case, we can make a distinction, because it's the same as water. Everybody's, only people that are paying for water aren't paying, the people that are not getting water aren't paying for water. So it's kind of the same thing here. We
So-
want to be fair.
Okay, so, and I know this is not part of your budget, but I'd be interested in seeing your budget. I tried to look on your website and I couldn't find it. And, it's referenced in some of your minutes that it's part of it's attached, but there's no way to get to that attachment. So
Okay,
if you
sure.
could provide us with that. And then you had suggested that this fee be $20 a year. How did you come up with that? What does that come out to? And what does that buy, so to speak?
So that, so if there's, let's just say, for the sake of round numbers, say there's 6,000 systems in town. So 20 times 6,000 is 120,000.
Yep.
So if you put that in your bucket for next year, and so in next year, we have lots of things to do. We got to do the revision of the plans and the ordinance, and beef up the inspection program, hire the person that's going to be the dedicated on-site person, et cetera. That would fund all of that next year. Once we do the plan going forward, we'll know what our 5-year budget is going forward. So we'll be able to say, okay, town, we don't need 120, we need 100 for the next 5 years, or we need something different. But it's just a starting point, so that we can do all the things that we need to do, including revamp the whole program and know where we're what we're doing going forward.
But did you cost that out first? Did you cost out all those things would come up to a cost of 120,000, then divide that into the 6, or you're just saying we think
did.
120,000 will do it?
We took that from both Portsmouth and Charlestown, who have running established programs. That's what they're averaging.
120 is a little unrealistic, especially right now, in my opinion, but
No, you said 20, didn't you, or did I mishear?
$20 per household per year.
Per year?
which will come out to how much?
Oh,
About
120,000.
120,000.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Well, can I say something here?
Can I,
Just
Well,
to put something in sort of
Jay,
perspective.
Jay, I'm gonna have Deb ask a question because you've spoke a few times and she has her hand up. I'll come back to you.
I'm sorry, and I just got kicked off a little bit. So I
kicked
missed
off
a little
again,
in
Deb.
here. Neverland, but are Portsmouth and Charlestown, are their residents being Do they pay this fee?
Yes.
They do.
Well, they pay it one way or the other. I don't know whether they have a separate fee or they just pay it out of their real estate taxes. They don't have sewer.
But that's
So
the
everybody
program.
is on septic systems
Septic.
enforcement.
Okay.
The cost of their annual program is averaging 120,000. And it's important to realize that some of that money actually goes towards your own employees, your municipal court clerks and your municipal judges, the time that they're going to be spending on any cases related to on-site inspection enforcement. So some of those program funds actually go towards your own town employees to handle the enforcement end of things. That's been the largest thing that's been missing from the OWTS program since its inception. So that's actually part of a big part of what we're asking here.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Jay, I'm going to have you answer a question, and I'd like to wrap this up.
Sure.
And
Well, I'm not gonna answer a question.
I
I'm
mean,
just gonna,
ask a question or do
I'm just gonna make a point. What's a dog license costing this town?
I don't know.
It's $10.
Okay.
So for the price of 2 dog licenses, that's what we're talking about here is a big. So when, $120,000 sounds like a lot, but there's a lot to do.
But there's also people that are paying taxes also. So this is not going to be a popular theory at all.
I'm sure it will not.
And I'm not sure I'm on board with it, to tell you the truth. But I'll have to think about this. Mike?
Yeah, and Jay, I'm not discounting the conversation. I want more information. At the same time, if I'm looking at developing a program, whatever that program is, I put together a budget and then I determine how I'm going to pay for that. I appreciate that you looked at Charlestown and Portsmouth. And Portsmouth does have some sewage, not a whole lot, but some. But again, they have their unique circumstance that they develop for it. And certainly that might help you build out a budget. I'm also not convinced, Carrie, of your statement just now that it would help pay for our employees who, unless we have to add a position to the court, they're already getting paid. So that's already there.
But this is work that they're not doing. They're not doing any of.
I understand that, but
So the amount of payroll hours to do that.
we're not going to pay a municipal court judge additional money to handle additional cases. We're not going to pay the existing clerk additional money to pay existing cases. Now, if at some point we looked at the total volume of the court's work and it made sense to seek another position of some type, then we would look at that. But it's not an apples to apples conversion there in terms of this money going to pay for those individuals.
To respond to your request about the program being budgeted, the actual wastewater management plan the original one did lay out a program budget. And it was very specific. That was 14 years ago. And it averaged at that time approximately $6 per resident.
How much?
And that was a $6 per homeowner. And in that plan, it was never done. So
well, because we couldn't afford it. Right,
Yeah.
because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we didn't want to do it, but it wasn't there. All right, so Leroy, well, Jay's been working with Leroy, and Joe was also put on as a liaison. So what is the first step do you want to do? Work on the ordinance?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I don't know. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I agree. I think we should put together the 5-year plan and look at the ordinances and start, drafting ordinances to make them more up to date. So that we, can at least start to address it. And then at that point, maybe propose some sort of budget that would be realistic for an enforcement process. Maybe $20 isn't the right number. I don't know, but we Mike Burke is right in that, we should probably put together a full budgetary scope of, what this would look like and what we're actually purchasing before you can make a decision. And I'm, I think this meeting is more conceptual than it is, nuts and bolts at this point. So we do need to at least get the basic plans in place and the ordinances in place. Have that, run that by the council, see how you feel about those, what they look like, whether or not you can embrace them, if they need to be modified, and then go from there. But we
Right,
need,
and
we're so far behind with 2003 plans and ordinances that we definitely need updates.
Right, and I'm thinking this won't be implemented or budgeted until at least the next budget cycle, which would be the 21-22. 21-22.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're gonna get all this together before May.
Well, I would hope that we could maybe set a goal to do at least the planning and ordinance changing phases, ordinance updating phases, and get that in this next budget, and at least separate the fees out so that that's fair and equitable to everyone.
I don't think we're gonna have time to do that because I think the council as a whole needs to see the new ordinance, the 5-year plan. I mean, that's how I feel before I would make any
Budget.
decision on
It needs to be
restricted
line
accounts.
item.
What, Donna?
I think it needs to be like a line item budget from them on this, just like you would for any budget.
Okay.
What all the costs are, what the staff would be, would they be
Right,
union?
and I don't think,
union?
I think it's unrealistic to think that that's gonna happen for this budget. And besides the point, this budget is so tight. And was so tight last year that we need to catch up on some stuff before we could do this, I believe. But anyway, so who's gonna work on the ordinance and the 5-year plan? Chris? Does anyone have any
Joan has her hand
suggestions?
up. Joan has her
Joan?
hand up. She's volunteering.
Joan, are you volunteering? All right.
Oh, I thought she.
I just have a comment. As far as municipal court goes, Leroy, I know it takes time for any legislative change, and they're only in session 6 months a year. So definitely not this legislative session. If you want to plan it for the next one, it's got to be in place by the end of this year. So if you got to view your horizon, is it going to be next year's legislative session or the year after that? And then the impact on the municipal court is going to require some change procedurally in our process. Right now, it only handles traffic citation. So it's probably a different set of people that would need to be involved in this process if you go in that direction. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I think one thing right now, we don't have the budget to do any of the work this year. We have a $20,000 budget for this fiscal year that we're in right now. The wastewater district doesn't have any funds to actually rewrite ordinances and write all of this stuff. We were talking about doing that in next year's budgets.
Yeah, we've already used up to $13,000 of the $20,000 that's been set aside, and we still have essentially half the year to go.
Yeah.
So that essentially will be providing those technical assistance questions and tackling enforcement through real estate transactions as best we can. But that's the money.
Yeah, there won't be any inspections this year or anything. So we're talking about everything for next year, and so we can't do it for 20,000. For next year's budget. So that's what I'm saying. Something needs to be done if we want to start along this 5-year plan and all this stuff for this upcoming budget. So.
All right, well, I looked at the budget this evening and it's flat. It's still there as 20,000 for for the new request. You haven't put in for any more.
I don't think they put in for it. I think that was just Rick putting in as
All
a
right,
placeholder.
so we need some kind of request from you, Leroy.
Okay, we'll work with Chris Cotta and Jay for that.
Perfect.
You got, Denise, you got Joe waving his hand.
All right, go ahead, Joe. You're muted. Oh,
Yeah, my question is there anything that the town could be liable for if we don't focus or go along with some of these items? That's my question. Is there anything we could be fined for not following up with or pursuing?
Well, I think that the Rhode Island DEM does monitor the waterways off our coast. And so they're constantly monitoring the wastewater that's going into the bay. And then I know that Stonebridge is having problems with the Stafford Pond because of algae blooms and that sort of thing. And that's a lot of that's wastewater nutrients going into the water, promoting that. So
but
there are.
Yeah, but that's also other things that are going on at Stafford.
Yeah, so that's part of it.
Definitely
Yeah.
other things that go on in Stafford Pond, because we addressed this a couple of years ago, the fishing and the motor and everything that goes on there.
Yeah. So that's all part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a potential that we could be cited or fined or something if we don't do things.
Just so you know, there's been, this program we've gone over. It's several, it's 14 years old, and there hasn't been, there's never been an enforcement action. I think that is telling, and that is where there's some potential, Mr. Perry. I think that when you look at your neighbor, we mentioned this last year in Portsmouth. The town was actually fined, and there was dispute that they weren't actually fined, but they were. DEM did fine the town for 20 some odd years of failure to act. And so we don't want to get to 20 years. We're already at 14 years. So we don't want to get to 20. We don't want to get to a point where we're talking about DEM fining the town. We don't want to get there. We want to make sure that we take care of this before that ever happens.
All right, so the action plan right now is Chris and Leroy and Carrie, Jay, and I believe Joe is one of the liaisons. We'll get together, create some kind of a 5-year plan. The ordinance and Mike Marcello can certainly help with that.
Yep.
And some kind of a budget, a long-term budget, a 5-year plan budget. We can't do this all at once. That's unrealistic to even think about that. I think we all feel we need to help, but if we saw all this in front of us, it would give us a better idea of where we're going. Does that sound reasonable to all of you?
Sure. We'll get with Chris and Jay and Joe and come up with a.
Yeah, and I think this is a movement forward. Do you agree?
No, it is.
Leroy?
We're not all going to agree on everything at once, but this is starting the ball rolling.
Right. Well, I think that this is progress well overdue. And I think if we started, and then anytime you want to come on the agenda, tell us your plan or give us some figures, you're welcome to just submit it to Joan. We'll put you on the agenda, even if you want to give us updates and
Okay.
give us some idea of maybe what budgetary budget we need to put in this year, next year, and 5 years from now, all the way through. Chris?
I have just another, it's kind of a separate question. I know we're talking about on-site wastewater, but on the sewering side, Leroy, you own the infrastructure. The Tiverton Wastewater owns the infrastructure that you put in and that we have put in over the years. But somebody told me the interceptor line is not part of what you own right now. And that's because there's a bond on it.
Yep.
Correct.
The bond's paid. Do you take over the ownership of the interceptor bond?
Yeah.
And the second part of my question is all the infrastructure that is underground in the villages at Mount Hope Bay.
That's not ours.
At all for any of that? If and when something was to fail in those systems?
It's not ours. I checked on that, and that is all private infrastructure that they own and that they're responsible for taking care of.
Okay, all right. I was just wondering, certain parts of assets in town, ultimately, I know the bond payment for that interceptor line will be paid next year. It'll be done.
Oh, okay.
That's
Okay.
great.
I was just wondering that we would wind up giving it to the wastewater district.
Yes.
We usually handle those transactions for $1.
Well, that's fine. No, but I just,
That's what I like. Every now and then, you'll see us send a check in, and it's relative to the interceptor, and it's our lease agreement. And I think you get a check for $1 for it.
Chris, is that the TIF bond?
Yes.
So any of the laterals that would go into like Sousa Road onto that, you would own that until you take over ownership of the interceptor line.
Yes.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
the main trunk line that goes along the river, along the railroad tracks, who owns that today?
That's part of that interceptor
It's the
line
interceptor.
that the town owns right now. It's a
Because
24-inch.
my understanding is when the villages of Mount Hope Bay did their conceptual plan years ago to build what they wanted to, they paid for that piece from there to forever. The only thing
That's
that
correct.
The only thing that Tiverton paid for was to go from the top of the hill on Main Road to the industrial park. That's what our TIF bond was for, was to do the addition to get sewer to the industrial park. Everything
Yeah,
else was paid for by the villages. So I was wondering, do you own the line down along the railroad tracks?
Yes.
So-
Well, we'll own that when the bond is
Okay.
satisfied.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just
Yeah.
trying to get pieces together on the puzzles here of some of these files, that just trying to figure out who owns what. So
Sure.
it was a side question, but it is somehow related.
Okay.
All right, so is there any attendees that would like to ask any questions? I'm looking at the Q&A and it doesn't look like there's any open questions.
I think a lot of them got answered during the time frame. I know
Yes, that's
somebody
what I
asked about
think, yeah.
salaries and personnel and things like that, but it was too premature for any of those answers to come through, so.
I tried to send some answers as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
So.
All right, any further questions from the council? Are all the councilors satisfied with the progress right now in the plan?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Leroy,
Thank
thank you
you.
for coming. Carrie, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for
Jay
your
and Joe.
time.
Jay and Joe, thank you for helping with this project, and hopefully we'll get something done soon and we can start moving forward.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Take care.
Motion to
Careful,
adjourn.
careful
Thank
driving
you,
home.
Carrie.
Everybody be careful driving home. The roads are slippery.
It's really snowing out right now.
Thanks, Joe.
Is
It's
it?
not snowing now, is it?
Yeah, well, it
I'm
is
so
here.
happy about it.
It's
Yeah,
still,
it is.
it's still snowing.
Yeah, it is here. I just let the dog out. He's full of snow.
I'm a complete child when it snows. I love it so much.
I hate it so much.
All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion to-
Mike gave the
Second.
motion
Third.
and
Second.
I guess Bill seconded it. All
Somebody
those in
did.
favor?
Aye, aye,
Opposed, show
aye,
of
aye.
hands.